Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Muhammad Saad and I am here today with my group members to give a presentation on grammatical errors. In this presentation, we will be discussing the importance of good grammar in technical writing and how it can help you communicate your ideas effectively. During this presentation, we will highlight some of the most common grammatical errors that are often made and provide you with some tips on how to avoid them. By the end of this presentation, you will have a better understanding of how good grammar can enhance your writing skills. So let's get started. Okay, now I would like to take a moment to introduce my group members who are joining me in this presentation. First, we have Suleiman Zahid with roll number 138. Next, we have Tawheed Naveed with roll number 129. After that, Muhammad Ibrahim, roll number 139. And lastly, we have Saad Khalid with roll number 130. Together we have researched and compiled information on this topic and we hope that you find this presentation informative and helpful. So before we begin, I would like to provide you with an overview of what we will be covering today. This slide that you see here is a table of contents slide and it shows the different sections that we will be discussing. If you want to go in detail, you can pause the video and read all of this. Also, if you notice, the page number of the book is also mentioned. So after this presentation, you can always go back and consult the book. On this slide, you can see some of the main points of the presentation. So take a moment and read them. Grammar may not be the most exciting topic, but the fact is it plays a very crucial role in effective communication. Proper grammar can help you convey your message clearly and precisely, which is especially very important in technical writing. In technical writing, accuracy and clarity are essential. Poor grammar can lead to confusion or even misinterpretation of your messages, which can have serious consequences. By using proper grammar, you can ensure that your writings is easy to understand and that your message is conveyed accurately. Now let's dive into the first topic of our presentation, which is agreement in grammar. First of all, we will understand what agreement is and why it is important. Then we will see some common examples of agreement errors and finally some tips for avoiding agreement errors. What is agreement in grammar? So here is a general idea. Agreement in grammar refers to the way that different parts of a sentence have to agree with one another in terms of tense, subject, verb and pronoun, etc. Proper agreement is essential for clarity and accuracy in writing. Here is an example of agreement. A singular subject requires a singular verb, while a plural subject requires a plural verb. Agreement errors can make a sentence confusing or difficult to understand, so it is important to pay attention to these rules. One of the most common grammatical errors in technical writing is subject-verb agreement. This error occurs when the verb in a sentence does not agree with its subject in terms of number and person. For example, you might say the team is playing well instead of the team are playing well, or he have a new project instead of he has a new project. These errors can make your writings unclear and difficult to understand. So to avoid these errors, it is important to identify the subject and verb in the sentence and make sure not to use the wrong form of the verb. Here are some more examples. You can read them. Pronoun antecedent agreement. Essentially, this means that the pronoun used in a sentence must agree in number and gender with its antecedent, which is the noun that the pronoun is referring to. Now, why is this important? Well, incorrect pronoun antecedent agreement can make it challenging for readers to follow your writing and understand your message. It can also lead to confusion and ambiguity. Let's take a look at some of the examples. Anyone can pick up their applications at the job placement center. As you can see, it is incorrect. The reason is that they have used their with a singular antecedent, which is obviously incorrect. So instead we will say anyone can pick up his or her application at the job placement center, as we have used singular antecedent with a singular subject. To avoid these kind of mistakes, here are some tips. First, always make sure that the pronoun matches the number and gender of its antecedent. Second, be aware of the gender neutral pronouns such as they or them, which can be used in place of gender specific pronouns like he or she. Lastly, when in doubt, try rephrasing the sentence to avoid using a pronoun altogether.
So here are common grammatical errors. Actually, good grammar is essential for clear and effective communication. However, even the most experienced writers can make common grammatical errors. So in this segment, we will discuss five of the most common uh, grammatical errors. So that is fragments, modification, parallelism, few sentences, and comma surprises. We will explain what each error is, provide examples, and give tips on how to avoid them. So, first one is fragments. Fragments, a sentence fragment is a group of words that is written like a sentence, but because it lacks either a subject, a word, or both. So, here is an example like working with computers. And then Joe found that working with computers used his training. In this sentence, we have been added Joe as subject and found as predicate. So every sentence needs a subject and a verb, and it needs to express a complete thought. If it doesn't do those things, it's a fragment. So when you're writing or speaking, always make sure that your sentences are complete and make sense on their own. Like uh, we can take another example, in the park playing with the dogs. This sentence is a fragment because it lacks a subject and a verb. So to correct this, uh, we can add a subject and a verb like this. While in the park, I enjoy playing with the dogs. So next is modifiers. Modifiers are words or phrases that provide additional information about a noun or a word in a sentence. They can help to make your writing more descriptive and interesting, but it's important to use them correctly. Actually, modification errors occur when a descriptive phrase or clause is misplaced in a sentence, making it unclear uh, which word or phrase it modifies. So here's an example. Like, he had a heart attack almost every time he was reviewed by a supervisor. So we put this almost here, then this is correct. He almost had a heart attack every time he was reviewed by his supervisor. So it's important to choose the right modifier for the noun or verb you are describing and to avoid using too many modifiers in one sentence. This can make your writing sound cluttered and confusing. Always ask yourself whether a modifier is necessary to convey the information you want to express or not. Next is parallelism. All items in the list should be parallel in grammatical form and avoid mixing phrases and sentences, independent clauses. So, actually, parallelism errors occur when the structure of a sentence is not parallel, meaning that elements of a sentence are not balanced. So, here is an example. Like, this is phrase. Then all employees have to enroll in a training seminar. This is sentence. So, the correct version is that entering mileage in logs, enrolling in training seminars means that in a list, either all should be the phrases or all should be the sentences. So here is an other example. Like I like to run, hiking, and swimming. This sentence is not parallel because the verbs are not in the same form. To correct this sentence, you could make the verbs parallel. Like I like to run, hike, and swim. Or you can say I like running, hiking, and swimming. So next is comma supplies. A comma supplies occurs when two independent clauses are joined by a comma rather than separated by a period or semicolon. So here's an example. Sue was an excellent employee, comma, she got a promotion. This sentence is a comma supplies because it separates two independent clauses with a comma uh, instead of a coordinating conjunction or a period. So to fix this sentence, we can add a coordinating conjunction or a period like this. Uh, Sue was an excellent employee, semicolon, she got a promotion. And in the next, we put uh, full stop, then she got a promotion. It makes sense. Then we add so she got a promotion. Like Sue was an excellent employee, comma, so she got a promotion. That makes sense. So a few sentence is when two independent clauses are joined together without any punctuation or conjunction. It sounds similar to the previous one, comma supplies, but there uh, Uh, but in that example, there is a comma here, but here is not. The company performed well last quarter. Its stock rose several points. It is incorrect and doesn't make sense. So to correct this, these are independent clauses joined together without any punctuation or conjunction. So to correct this sentence, we can add a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Like the company performed well last quarter, then period, its stock rose several points. We break from this and then this makes sense. The company performed well last quarter, comma, so its stock rose several points. Like in previous example, previous slide, we also put comma and then so and the company performed well last quarter, semicolon, its stock rose several points. So now you know about five common grammatical errors: fragments, modification, parallelism, few sentences, and comma supplies. So remember to proofread your writing carefully and use these steps to help you catch and fix these errors. By using proper grammar and uh, using these tips, you can communicate more effectively and ensure that your message is clear and easy to understand.
Our next topic is punctuation. Good technical writing requires more than just clear and concise language. It also requires the effective use of punctuation. Punctuation is used to clarify the meaning of a sentence and make it easier to read and understand. Let's start with apostrophe. Apostrophes are used to show possession or to indicate a contraction. For example, Jim's tool chest is next to furnace. The employee's reception will be held next week. Next up is colon. Colon is Colons are used to introduce lists or to provide emphasis. For example, note, hand tighten the nuts. Caution, wash thoroughly if any mixture touches your skin. Here, they are trying to emphasize on a point. That is why they have used colon. Next is comma. Comma are one of the most commonly used types of punctuation. They are used to separate words or phrases within a sentence. For example, you are the best person for this job, comma, so I will hire you. If you want to test equipment, do so by 5 p.m. Next is dash. Dashes are used to indicate a sudden change in thought or to emphasize a point. For example, you will be fired dash unless you obey company rules. So they want to emphasize on this point. That is why they have used a dash before. Ellipses. Ellipses are used to indicate that something has been omitted from a sentence. For example, 6 years ago, prior to incorporating the company, had to pay extremely high federal taxes. Here we have used ellipses. 6 years ago, ellipses, the company had to pay extremely high federal taxes. So ellipsis marks show that something has been omitted. Next is exclamation point. Exclamation points are used to express strong feelings, emotions, or excitement. For example, you must work harder. Do not use the machine. Danger. Next is hyphen. Hyphens are used to join words together or to clarify the meaning of a sentence. He is a well-known engineer. We have used hyphen between well and known to clarify the meaning. Next is quotation marks. Quotation marks are used to indicate direct speech or to enclose a quotation, a quote, or a title. For example, he said, your division sold the most compressors last year. We are quoting somebody, that is why we have used quotation marks here. It is important to use quotation marks correctly in technical writing to avoid confusion or misinterpretation. By using these punctuation marks effectively, we can make our writings clearer and more engaging for our readers.
So our next segment of today's presentation is case in grammar. So grammatical case indicates the functional relationship of a noun or a pronoun to other words in a sentence. So the case of a noun or pronoun is always determined by its function in a phrase, clause, or a sentence. There are three cases in English grammar: subjective case, objective case, and possessive case. The first case is a subjective case. A noun or a pronoun is in a subjective case when it represents the person or thing acting. For example, in the sentence she is running, she is in the subjective case because she, like uh, any girl, is doing action, is acting. So a subjective case can also indicate the person or thing acted upon, uh, or the topic of description. The pronoun is still in the subjective case when it follows the verb, which makes it a subjective complement. Like he is the head of quality control group, that is subject, uh, and then this he, we put this he here. The head of the quality control group is he. Both are correct. Both make sense. The next one is objective case. A pronoun is in the objective case when it indicates the person or thing receiving the action that is expressed by a verb in the active voice. Means that this case is used to indicate the person or thing receiving the action that is expressed by a verb in the active voice. For example, in the sentence, he gave the book to her, her is in the objective case. So the objective case indicates the thing acted on, like the vendor showed him, or the person or thing acting, but in the objective position. Like the vendor was shot by him. And next example, like do not be confused by an additional name. Like the company promoted me in July, and then we put an additional name. The company promoted John and me in July. There is there will be no change, no difference in this grammatical form. So hope this makes sense. So next one is possessive case. Like a noun or pronoun is in the possessive case when it represents a person, place, or thing that possesses something. Uh, Means that this case is used to indicate the person, place, or thing that possesses something. For example, in the sentence that is Jane's car, Jane's is in the possessive case. Like a singular, here is an example. Singular nouns are made possessive by adding apostrophe s, like this. The manufacturer's robotic inventory system. Uh, like and While plural nouns that end in s uh, show the possessive by placing an apostrophe after the s. That forms the plural, like a manager's meeting. So it's important to use the correct uh, case of grammar to avoid confusion or ambiguity in your writing. Uh, for example, using the possessive case clarifies that a team belongs to both John and Jane in the sentence. Like the company hired John's and Jane's team. So finally, keep in mind that the cases of grammar can vary in different languages, so it's important to learn the rules for each language you're studying.
Grammatical categories. Here we are discuss about some grammatical categories such as gender, mood, person, numbers, pronoun reference. First grammatical category is gender. In English grammar, gender refers to the classification of nouns and pronouns as masculine and feminine. The gender of most words can be identified only by the choice of appropriate pronoun such as he, she, or it. Gender is important to writers because they must be sure that nouns and pronouns within a grammatical construction agree in gender. We refer to a woman as she or her, not as it. To a man as he or him, not as it. To a building we refer as it, not as he or she. The few instances in which gender distinctions are made in English are summarized as follows, such as subject pronouns he or she, object pronouns him or her, possessive adjectives his or her. Some nouns are king, queen, boy or girl, bull or cow, etc. Such when a noun such as doctor can refer to a person of either male or female, you need to know the male or female of the person to which the noun refers to determine the gender appropriate pronoun, such as the doctor gave her patient advice. This shows that doctor is female. The doctor gave his patient advice. This shows that doctor is female. That creates the difference between them. So next is mood. The grammatical term mood refers to the verb functions that indicate whether the verb is intended to make a statement, ask a question, give a command, or express their emotions. There are two types of mood, indicative mood and subjunctive mood. Indicative mood. The indicative mood expresses a command, suggestion, request. In the indicative mood, the implied subject is not expressed. For example, I wish he was here now. This shows that the reality he was shows the indicative mood. And the next one is subjunctive mode. Subjunctive mode expresses something that is contrary to fact, conditional, hypothetical, or purely imaginative. It can also express a wish, a doubt, or possibility. In the subjunctive mode, word is used instead of was in clauses that speculate about the person, about the present or future. For example, I wish he were here now. We use were instead of was. One example is that if I were going to the conference, I would room with him. So next is person. Person refers to the form of a personal pronoun that indicates whether the pronoun represents the speaker, the person spoken to, or the person or anything spoken about. A pronoun representing the speaker is in the first person. For example, I could not find the answer in the manual. A pronoun that represents the person or people spoken to is the second person. For example, you will be mine, you will be a good manager. Okay. And the third one is a pronoun that represents the person or people spoken about is the third person. For example, they received the news quietly. The following list shows that first, second, and third person pronouns. First, singular, I, me, my, mine, you, we, and plural, us, our, ours. So next is number. The number is the grammatical property of nouns, pronouns, and verbs that signifies whether one thing, singular, or more than one is plural, is being referred to. Nouns normally form the plural by simply by adding s or es to their singular forms. For example, partners in successful businesses are not always personal friends. Some nouns are require an internal change to form the plural. Uh, there are some examples of singular and plural. I am ready to begin work. This shows that singular verb. And the next one is plural. We are ready to begin work. Work. This shows that plural verb. Next is numerals or words. Write numbers from 0 through 10 as words and write numbers above 10 as numerals. For example, the association added 150 new members. Spell out numbers that begin a sentence, however, even if they would otherwise be written as numerals. For example, 150 new members joined the association. This can be written in the words, and the first one example is written on the numerals writings. And the next example is that we have we have had over 1,000 requests this month. So the last one is money. In general, use numerals to express exact or approximate amounts of money. For example, we need to charge $28.95 per unit. Use words to express indefinite amounts of money. The printing system may cost several $1,000s. This shows that amount is written in words. And the last one is use numerals for more complex or exact amounts. The corporation paid 24 million in taxes, $24 million in taxes last year.
Thank you all for listening actively to our presentation. We hope that you find it useful and informative. Remember, good grammar not only improves the clarity and effectiveness of your writing, but it also enhances your credibility as a professional. As a final note, always remember to proofread your work before submitting it and pay close attention to the details. With practice, you can master the art of good grammar. Once again, thank you for your time and attention.